The Galactic Council's grand hall was filled with laughter. It echoed across the massive chamber, where representatives from hundreds of species sat in floating platforms, arranged in a circular pattern. At the center of it all, a single human ambassador stood in silence. The one speaking was a Xelzar warlord named Gorin. He was a towering creature with thick, armored skin and 4 glowing red eyes. His voice was deep, filled with amusement. "You humans are truly amusing. You want a seat in the Galactic Council. What have you contributed to the galaxy? What power do you have?" More laughter followed. The Seraphim, a species with slender, silver bodies and glowing blue eyes, smiled with amusement. They were powerful telepaths who could read the thoughts of most beings. One of them, a representative named Zalen, spoke in a soft, melodic tone. "We don't even bother reading human minds. There's nothing interesting inside them." Other alien species joined in. The Drakshul, reptilian beings with long tails and sharp teeth, flicked their tongues in mockery. The mechanical Varnaks, whose bodies were a fusion of metal and organic matter, simply ignored the humans as if they were beneath notice. The human ambassador, an older man named Daniel Ross, remained calm. He adjusted his suit, looked at the gathered aliens, and spoke in a firm voice. "Humanity is not as weak as you think." More laughter. Corin smirked. "Oh, your kind barely discovered faster than light travel a few decades ago. Your ships are slow. Your weapons are primitive. You cannot even protect your own colonies from minor threats. What makes you think you deserve to stand among us?" Ross took a deep breath. He had expected this reaction. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries. Ever since they made first contact with the greater galactic community, they had been treated as nothing more than an amusing, insignificant species. But humanity had been patient. Ross looked around the chamber and then spoke again, his voice clear. "You think we are weak because we have not shown you everything. That is about to change." The laughter died down slightly. Some representatives exchanged glances. Zalen tilted his head. "Oh, and what exactly do you mean by that, human?" Ross smiled, but it wasn't a smile of amusement. It was a smile of quiet confidence. "In 1 week, we invite the Galactic Council to witness a demonstration of human technology. We will prove that we are more than what you believe us to be." Corin scoffed. "And if we refuse?" Ross's eyes hardened. "Then you will miss the greatest event in history." For a moment, silence filled the chamber. Then, Gorin let out a deep laugh. "Very well, human. We shall watch your little show. And when you fail, we will make sure humanity never speaks of power again." Ross simply nodded. "We won't fail." With that, he turned and walked out of the council chamber. As he left, the laughter behind him resumed. But this time, there was something different in the air, something none of them realized yet. The age of mockery was coming to an end. The secret of humanity. Deep in a hidden facility on the dark side of Earth's moon, a group of scientists and engineers stood in front of a massive structure. It wasn't just any spaceship. It was Infinity Spear, humanity's greatest creation. It didn't look like a normal ship. Its surface constantly shifted, parts of it phasing in and out of visibility. It had no traditional engines, no clear weapon systems. To an untrained eye, it looked like a ghostly, unfinished construct. But in reality, it was the most advanced piece of technology ever created. Dr. Helen Carter, the lead scientist on the project, stood beside General Morgan, the head of Earth's military forces. They both looked at the ship with a mix of pride and anticipation. "Do you think they're ready?" Morgan asked. Helen smiled. "The question isn't if they are ready. The question is if they can even understand what they are about to see." Morgan chuckled. "The Council thinks we are weak. They think we don't belong." Helen nodded. "That's why this ship exists. It doesn't just move through space. It moves through dimensions they don't even understand. We are not playing by their rules anymore." Morgan looked at the ship again. Then let's give them a reason to stop laughing. The galaxy watches. A week later, in a neutral star system chosen for the demonstration, the Galactic Council gathered. Massive ships from dozens of species surrounded a designated observation area. Some were there out of curiosity, others out of amusement, expecting a grand failure. Goran stood aboard his warship, arms crossed. Let's see what tricks these humans have. Zalen watched with mild interest. Perhaps it will be entertaining. In the distance, a human fleet arrived. Standard ships, nothing impressive, except for one. The Infinity Spear emerged from a distortion in space, appearing as if it had been there all along. The alien sensors tried to scan it, but received only unreadable data. A silence fell over the gathered fleets. The ship didn't follow conventional physics. It wasn't flying like normal vessels. It was existing in multiple places at once, flickering between dimensions. For the first time in history, the Galactic Council wasn't laughing. Ross's voice echoed through the comms. Let the demonstration begin. And with that, humanity's greatest secret was about to be revealed. A heavy silence filled the observation zone. Dozens of alien warships hovered in place, their crews staring at the human vessel before them. Infinity Spear wasn't moving like an ordinary ship. It flickered, its surface shifting between reality and something else, something the galaxy had never seen before. On the bridge of his massive warship, Warlord Goran narrowed his glowing red eyes. His officers were busy scanning the ship, but the results made no sense. Report. Goran snapped. An officer hesitated. Our sensors. They cannot lock onto it, sir. The ship is there, but it's not. What nonsense is this? Goran growled. Meanwhile, aboard the observation station, Zalen of the Seraphim sat in quiet confusion. As a powerful telepath, he could read the minds of most species, but as he focused on the humans inside Infinity Spear, he found nothing. It was as if their minds didn't exist. This is impossible, Zalen whispered. The gathered alien leaders were no longer laughing. They were waiting, watching, trying to understand what they were witnessing. Then, the human ambassador, Daniel Ross, spoke through the communication channel. His voice was calm, steady. Honored members of the Galactic Council, you doubted humanity's strength. You believed we were weak, unworthy. Today, we will show you why you were wrong. A deep hum vibrated through space. The Infinity Spear began to glow, its hull shifting in and out of sight. And then, in a blink, it disappeared. Beyond space, beyond time. Inside the ship, Dr. Helen Carter stood beside General Morgan. Around them, holographic displays showed their surroundings, or at least, what was left of them. We have entered the 7th-Dimensional phase, Helen reported. Morgan looked at the screen, where the enemy warships were frozen in place. Time dilation. More than that, Helen replied. From our perspective, they are standing still. From theirs, we have vanished. Morgan exhaled. And they still don't understand what's happening. Infinity Spear was not just a ship. It was a key to a new level of existence. Other species traveled through space. Humanity had learned to step above it. The ship wasn't moving faster than light. It was moving outside of the known dimensions, choosing where and when to reappear. Helen tapped a control panel. Shall we continue the demonstration? Morgan nodded. Let's give them a glimpse. The ship phased back into normal space, but not where it had been. It now hovered directly behind the largest Selzar warship. On Goran's bridge, alarms screamed. Officers scrambled to find out how the human ship had teleported behind them without any trace of movement. Goran's fists clenched. Impossible. Ross's voice echoed once more. Still think we are weak. A weapon beyond comprehension. Zalen felt something disturbing. It was not fear. His kind did not fear easily. But for the first time, he felt uncertainty. This technology is beyond our understanding, he admitted. Beside him, a Varnak scientist analyzed the human ship. His synthetic brain processed the data and reached a conclusion. This vessel operates outside conventional physics. It is not bound by space or time. A Drakshul commander bared his sharp teeth. Are you saying the humans can strike from anywhere, at any time? The Varnax nodded. Yes. A terrifying realization spread through the council members. A fleet could be prepared, defenses could be raised. But if the humans could simply appear wherever they wished, nothing could stop them. Meanwhile, aboard the Infinity Spear, Helen activated the next stage of the demonstration. Deploying Phase Disruptor. At once, the space around the human ship rippled. The nearest Selzar battleship, the pride of their fleet, began to bend. Its metal hull twisted as if reality itself was breaking apart. The ship's crew screamed as their vessel folded into itself. Then, in an instant, it was gone. Not destroyed. Not exploded. Just erased. Silence followed. Ross's voice cut through the stunned air. That was a warning shot. Corin's breath came in heavy growls. His best warship, one of the strongest in the fleet, had been removed from existence as if it had never been there. Not a single shot had been fired. Panic and denial. On the observation station, alien leaders whispered in alarm. This technology, one muttered, must be stopped, another finished. But Zaylan shook his head. It is already too late. Humanity has surpassed us all. Some still refuse to accept the truth. A Seraphin diplomat, voice filled with denial, snapped, "This must be a trick, a mere illusion." But deep down, they knew the truth. Humanity was no longer the weak, primitive race they had mocked. They had broken the rules of the universe itself, the galaxy's new reality. Corin's rage turned into something else, something he had never felt before. Respect. He took a deep breath, then gave a slow, reluctant nod. Humanity, we underestimated you. Ross replied without arrogance, without mockery, just a simple, undeniable fact. Yes, you did. The Galactic Council had always believed themselves to be the rulers of the cosmos. But now, they faced a species that could not be contained, could not be controlled. Humanity had changed the game, and the rest of the galaxy would have to play by their rules now. A cold silence spread across the Galactic Council's observation station. Moments ago, an entire Selzar battleship had disappeared without a trace. No explosion, no debris, no energy signature. It was as if the ship had never existed. Alien leaders sat frozen in their seats. Their sensors were still struggling to process what had happened. The laughter that had filled this chamber a week ago was now a distant memory. On the massive screen at the center of the chamber, Infinity Spear hovered silently. It did not move like a normal ship. It flickered, existing in multiple places at once. The laws of physics did not seem to apply to it. Ambassador Daniel Ross's voice echoed through the communication channels. His tone was calm but firm. This is just a fraction of what humanity has achieved. You have called us weak. You have dismissed us as insignificant. But today, you have seen the truth. Warlord Corin's claws dug into the metal railing of his command bridge. His soldiers were silent, waiting for his reaction. The Selzar were warriors, proud and strong. Yet at this moment, Gorin felt something he had never known before. Helplessness. How did they do it? He muttered. One of his officers hesitated before responding. We don't know, sir. Their ship does not follow standard physical laws. It exists outside of conventional space. We cannot track it, and our weapons cannot lock onto it. Gorin's red eyes burned with frustration. Unacceptable. There must be a weakness. But deep down, he feared there wasn't one. A race that refused to stay weak. On the observation station, Zaylan of the Seraphin sat in stunned silence. The Seraphin were powerful telepaths, able to read the thoughts of almost any species. But when he had tried to read the minds of the humans aboard Infinity Spear, he had found nothing. At first, he had thought it was a defense mechanism, but now, a more terrifying possibility emerged in his mind. Had humanity evolved beyond the reach of the galaxy's understanding? A nervous Drakshul commander leaned forward, his reptilian tongue flicking in and out. If humans can erase ships at will, they can erase us. A mechanical Varnak scientist, who had been quietly analyzing the human vessel, finally spoke. Their technology operates on principles unknown to the galaxy. It is possible they are no longer limited by time or space. The Seraphin diplomat who had mocked humanity earlier shook his head. This can't be. How could a race as young as humans develop such technology? Zelen answered without turning his gaze from Infinity's spear. Because we never stopped them. The galaxy had spent centuries laughing at humans, ignoring them, calling them weak. No one had thought to monitor their scientific progress closely. Now the consequences of that mistake were unfolding before their eyes. The test of power. Ross's voice interrupted their thoughts. You are struggling to understand what you are seeing. That is expected. You have grown comfortable in your belief that humanity was beneath you. There was no arrogance in his tone, no cruelty, just fact. We will now conduct the second phase of our demonstration, Ross continued. On board Infinity's Spear, Dr. Helen Carter pressed a control panel. The ship's structure shifted, becoming hazy, like a mirage. Then suddenly, Infinity's Spear vanished. The alien warships immediately reacted. They activated full battle protocols, their weapons locking onto every possible location. The Xelzar fleet spread out, their warships positioning themselves defensively. But the ship was already behind them. Infinity's Spear reappeared directly in the center of the enemy fleet. It had moved without moving. No hyperspace jump, no wormhole, just pure dimensional manipulation. Before anyone could react, an invisible force spread outward from the human vessel. The nearest Xelzar warship began to stretch, as if space itself was pulling it in opposite directions. The ship's structure twisted and distorted, but there was no explosion, just a silent unraveling. Then it was gone. The rest of the fleet scrambled to retreat, but it was too late. Infinity's Spear disappeared again. When it reappeared, it was above the observation station, staring down at the gathered council. The moment that galaxy changed, Zealand's hands trembled. Never before had a species displayed such control over space itself. This was beyond war. This was domination. He turned to the others. We have a choice to make. We either accept humanity as equals or as our rulers. Goran's fists clenched, his pride battling against the truth. The Xelzar had always prided themselves on their strength, but for the first time in history, they were not the strongest. Ross's voice came again, steady and unshaken. This is not a declaration of war. It is an introduction to a new reality. We are no longer beneath you. We are no longer weak. From this day forward, humanity will no longer be dismissed. The Galactic Council had spent centuries laughing at Earth. Now, the laughter had stopped, and it would never return. The observation station hovered in the darkness of space, silent and still. A few moments ago, the Galactic Council had witnessed the impossible. A single human vessel, Infinity's Spear, had erased Xelzar warships from existence without firing a single shot. The alien leaders sat frozen in their seats. The mocking laughter that had once filled this chamber was now nothing but a distant memory. At the center of the observation room, a massive screen displayed Infinity's Spear. The ship no longer flickered. It simply was, existing in ways that no known technology should allow. Ambassador Daniel Ross stood in front of the transmission feed, waiting. He knew what was happening behind those nervous, fearful eyes. The Galactic Council had never been afraid of humans before. Now, they didn't know what to do. Finally, Warlord Goran of the Xelzar leaned forward. His red eyes burned with barely contained frustration. His claws dug into the metal table before him. What do you want? Goran growled. His voice no longer carried mockery, only caution. Ross didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He simply spoke. We want respect. A few council members glanced at one another. It was a simple demand, yet it carried more weight than any weapon. You mock us, Ross continued. You call us weak. You dismiss our achievements. You have pushed humanity aside for centuries." His voice remained calm, but there was a quiet power beneath his words. "That ends today." The Seraphin's warning. Zalen of the Seraphin studied Ross carefully. The Seraphin were telepaths, capable of reading the minds of most species. Yet every time Zalen tried to enter the thoughts of the humans aboard Infinity Spear, he found nothing but a void. He had seen many powerful civilizations rise and fall over the centuries. But this was different. "We acknowledge your strength, human," Zalen finally spoke. His voice was smooth, his glowing blue eyes locked onto Ross. "But power comes with consequences. If you continue on this path, you may find yourself alone. The galaxy fears what it cannot control." Ross tilted his head slightly. "Are you threatening us, Zalen?" The Seraphin shook his head. "No, I am warning you. If the other species believe humanity is too dangerous, they will unite against you." Ross let a few seconds of silence pass before responding. "And what do you think would happen if the galaxy tried to fight us?" No one answered. They had all seen what Infinity Spear was capable of. Ross continued, "We are not here to start a war. We are here to end the belief that humanity is weak. We have earned our place in this galaxy, whether you accept it or not." Zalen sighed. "You are forcing the Council into a decision they do not want to make." Ross nodded. "Yes." The debate begins. Tension filled the chamber. The leaders of the galaxy's most powerful empires struggle to understand their new reality. The Drexel warlord, a massive reptilian creature with sharp teeth and dark scales, hissed, "If we recognize humans as equals, what prevents them from becoming our rulers?" A Varnak scientist, a being made of both metal and flesh, processed data rapidly. "Humans do not seek to rule. They seek acknowledgement. However, their technology places them beyond any known species. If they wanted to rule, we would already be under their control." A silence followed those words. No one could argue against them. Goran exhaled sharply. "Then what do we do? Hand them a seat on the Council? Let them walk among us as if they are our equals?" Ross's voice was steady. "We are not your equals." All eyes turned to him. Ross continued, "We have surpassed you. The sooner you accept that, the better." Goran slammed his fist on the table. "You dare." But Ross wasn't finished. "That does not mean we seek war," he said firmly. "Humanity has always desired cooperation. We have always wanted peace, but we will no longer tolerate being treated as lesser beings." The weight of his words pressed against the Council members. The humans had been patient for centuries. Now, they were demanding what should have been given long ago. An uncertain future. Zalen folded his hands together. He could feel the emotions in the room. Anger, fear, confusion. The Council was trapped. They could not challenge the humans. They could not stop them. The only option left was acceptance. Finally, Zalen spoke. "We will call for a vote," he said. "The Galactic Council will decide whether humanity is to be given full membership and recognized as a dominant force in this galaxy." Ross nodded. "That is all we ask." But deep down, everyone knew the truth. This was not a vote. This was surrender. The aftermath. As the meeting ended, the Council members left in silence, their minds racing with possibilities. Some species would resist. Some would try to find weaknesses in humanity's power. But none of them could deny reality. Humanity had changed the balance of the galaxy. Aboard Infinity Spear, Dr. Helen Carter stood beside General Morgan, watching the Council's ships depart. "Do you think they'll accept us?" Morgan asked. Helen smirked. "They don't have a choice." Morgan exhaled, looking at the ship's holographic display. "We've come a long way." Helen nodded. "And we're just getting started. A new era begins." For centuries, the galaxy had laughed at humanity. Now, there was only silence. And from that silence, a new future was about to emerge. The Galactic Council chamber remained silent long after the meeting ended. The alien leaders had dispersed to their homeworlds, each carrying the same thought. Humanity had changed everything. But change was not always welcome. Far from the eyes of the public, in a hidden communication chamber, a secret meeting took place. Holographic figures flickered into existence. Leaders, warlords, and scientists from various species. The Drakshul warlord, Grex, leaned forward, his reptilian tongue flicking in frustration. "We cannot allow this. The humans must be stopped before they grow even stronger." The Tselzar warlord, Goran, crossed his arms. "How? Their technology is beyond anything we have seen. They erased my ships as if they were nothing." A pale, thin Seraphim diplomat spoke, his glowing blue eyes sharp. "Perhaps there is another way. If we cannot defeat them in battle, we must find a way to limit them." Grex hissed. "And how do you suggest we do that, diplomat?" The Seraphim smiled. "Knowledge is power, and we do not have enough knowledge of the humans." A mechanical Varnak scientist, his body half metal and half organic, spoke in a calm voice. "Then we must study them. Every technology has a flaw, even theirs." The room fell silent. There was no open declaration of war, no direct threats, but the decision had been made. Humanity would be watched, and if a weakness was found, it would be exploited. Aboard Infinity Spear, on the bridge of Infinity Spear, Ambassador Daniel Ross stood beside General Morgan and Dr. Helen Carter. The ship was silent, its crew watching the Galactic Council's fleets leave. "How do you think they'll react?" Morgan asked. Ross sighed. "Some will accept our place. Some will fear us. And some," he paused, "some will plot against us." Helen adjusted the holographic display. "We knew this would happen. The moment we revealed our power, the galaxy would look for ways to counter us." Morgan crossed his arms. "Let them try. They won't find anything." Ross gave him a sideways glance. "Never underestimate the desperation of those who feel powerless." Helen nodded. "Which is why we need to be ready. We may not be at war now, but conflicts don't always start with weapons. Sometimes they start in the shadows." The first move. In a remote part of space, a Tselzar scout ship drifted near an asteroid field. The crew had one mission: observe humanity, study their technology, and report any weaknesses. Inside the ship, a Tselzar scientist examined the data they had gathered. Their vessel does not use traditional propulsion. It moves by shifting through dimensions. A warrior standing nearby grunted. "Then how do we stop it?" The scientist hesitated. "If we disrupt their dimensional stability, perhaps we can trap them in normal space." The warrior smirked. "Then we just need to find a way to do that." Suddenly, alarms blared across the ship. The crew rushed to their stations. "What's happening?" the captain demanded. The sensor officer's voice shook. "Something is inside our ship." Before anyone could react, the lights flickered. The air felt heavier. Then, standing in the center of the command room, a human appeared. No door had opened. No teleportation signal had been detected. He was simply there. The Tselzar warriors drew their weapons, but the human didn't move. He wore a dark uniform, no visible armor, no weapons, but his presence was overwhelming. His voice was quiet, but it echoed through the chamber. "You are being watched just as you watch us." The captain's claws clenched. "How?" But the human was gone. The ship's systems returned to normal. The lights stabilized. The air pressure readjusted. The scientist swallowed. We need to leave. Now." The captain didn't hesitate. "Engage warp drive. Get us out of here." But as the ship prepared to jump, an error message appeared. "Error. Destination unavailable." A voice whispered through the ship's speakers. It was the same human's voice. "You won't be going anywhere." A message to the Council. The Galactic Council reconvened 2 days later, summoned urgently by the Tselzar. Goran stood at the center of the chamber, his red eyes burning with anger. The humans have violated our sovereignty. The council members looked at one another. Zalen, the Seraphim, leaned forward. Explain. Goran growled. One of our scout ships was invaded. A human appeared on board without warning, disabled our systems, and left a message. A Varnak scientist asked, "And what was the message?" Goran's voice was cold. "That we are being watched." The room fell into silence. Then Ross spoke. His voice was calm but carried weight. "Your ship was spying on us. Did you expect us to ignore it?" The Selzar warlord clenched his fists. "You threatened us." Ross shook his head. "No, we warned you." Zalen sighed. "It appears the humans are not as blind to our actions as we had hoped." The Drakshul commander bared his sharp teeth. "So what now? Do we continue this game of shadows, or do we admit that the humans are beyond our reach?" No one answered. Ross looked around the room. "We do not seek enemies. But if you move against us, we will respond. If you attempt to break us, we will remind you why that is a mistake." He let those words settle. "You have a choice," Ross continued. "Work with us, or spend your time searching for weaknesses that do not exist." The meeting ended soon after, but the tensions remained. Some leaders understood the truth. Humanity could not be challenged. But others still believed there had to be a way. In the shadows of the galaxy, the first steps of a silent war had begun. And humanity was watching. The galaxy had entered a new era. Humanity was no longer ignored, no longer dismissed as weak. But power did not bring peace, it brought fear. And fear always led to desperate actions. The Hidden Alliance. Deep within an uncharted region of space, a secret meeting was taking place. The most powerful warlords, scientists, and strategists of the Galactic Council had gathered in secrecy. They called themselves the Silent Hand. Warlord Goran of the Xelzar slammed his fist onto the table. "We cannot allow this to continue. The humans have gone unchecked for too long." Zalen of the Seraphim sat with his hands folded, his glowing blue eyes calm but watchful. "You speak as if we have a choice. Their technology is beyond us." Krex, the Drakshul warlord, hissed. "No technology is perfect. Even the strongest have weaknesses." A Varnak scientist, his metal body gleaming under the dim lights, processed data rapidly. "We have been analyzing their abilities. Their ship, Infinity Spear, moves outside normal space. We cannot track it. We cannot predict it. However," Goran leaned forward. "However what?" The scientist hesitated, then spoke carefully. "Their ship exists in multiple dimensions at once. If we disrupt the stability of those dimensions, we may be able to trap it." Zalen narrowed his eyes. "And how do you propose we do that?" The scientist activated a hologram. A strange, pulsating device appeared. "This is a dimensional anchor. If we place it near Infinity Spear, it will force the ship into normal space. Once there, it can be destroyed." A slow smile spread across Goran's face. "Then we must set a trap. Humanity knows." On board Infinity Spear, Ambassador Daniel Ross stood beside General Morgan and Dr. Helen Carter. A holographic display flickered in front of them, showing intercepted communications from the Galactic Council. Ross exhaled slowly. "They're planning something." Helen nodded. "It was only a matter of time. The moment we revealed our power, they would search for a way to counter it." Morgan crossed his arms. "And let them try. We'll crush them if they move against us." Ross shook his head. "No, we are not here to start a war. We have proven our strength. But if we start destroying fleets, the entire galaxy will unite against us." Helen tapped the hologram, zooming in on the data. "They're developing a device to lock us into normal space. If they succeed, we'll lose our advantage." Morgan scoffed. "They're desperate. Desperation leads to mistakes." Ross nodded. "Yes, and that's exactly why we need to be careful." He turned to Helen. "Can you find a way to counter this dimensional anchor?" Helen smiled, already working on it. Ross looked back at the display. The silent hand thought they were moving in secret, but humanity was always watching. The trap is set. In deep space, a fleet of Selzar warships waited. At their center was the device, the dimensional anchor. Goran stood on the bridge of his command ship, eyes locked on the scanners. The humans will come. They cannot resist showing their power. A Drakshul officer nodded. We have spread false information about a lost human colony ship. If they take the bait, Infinity Spear will arrive. Goran smirked. And when they do, they will learn what it means to challenge the galaxy. Minutes passed, then hours. Then, movement, a flicker in space, a ripple in reality. Infinity Spear appeared. The trap was sprung. The countermove. The dimensional anchor activated. A pulse of energy spread outward, locking onto Infinity Spear. The ship flickered, its form stabilizing in normal space. Inside the Selzar command ship, officers cheered. It worked. They are trapped. Goran's voice was triumphant. Now fire everything we have. Hundreds of energy weapons locked onto Infinity Spear. Missiles, plasma cannons, disruptor beams, all fired at once. For the first time, the human vessel did not move. The silent hand watched with satisfaction. This was it, humanity's greatest weapon, destroyed. But then, something happened. The weapons never reached Infinity Spear. Instead, they disappeared. Goran's expression changed from triumph to confusion. What? What is happening? Aboard Infinity Spear, Helen grinned. Nice try. With a single command, Infinity Spear phased out of normal space. The dimensional anchor failed. Ross's voice echoed through the Selzar fleet's communication channels. We expected this. Goran's heart pounded. Impossible. Ross continued. You are making the same mistake again. You believe that we have limits, that we follow the same rules as you. The Selzar warships turned to flee, but it was too late. The space around them bent and twisted. Ships vanished, not destroyed, simply gone, erased from existence. Goran watched in horror as his fleet disappeared one by one. Ross's voice was calm. Let this be your final warning. We are not your enemies. But if you continue to challenge us, we will remind you why that is a mistake. Goran's ship was the last one left. Then, just as suddenly as it had begun, Infinity Spear vanished. Goran's ship was left drifting alone in the void. The silent hand had failed. A final decision. Days later, the Galactic Council met once more. Zalem stood, looking at the empty seats of those who had been part of the silent hand. It is over. The humans have proven their dominance. Goran remained silent, his fists clenched. His pride was shattered. Grex, the Drakshul warlord, sighed. We cannot fight them. We must accept reality. Zalen turned to Ross, who stood watching them with an unreadable expression. Ross spoke one final time. Make your choice. Work with us, or waste your time searching for weaknesses that do not exist. The council chamber was silent. Then, one by one, the leaders stood. A decision had been made. Humanity was no longer beneath them. Humanity was the dominant force in the galaxy. And nothing would ever change that. The galaxy had changed. The silent hand was shattered. The great warlords, scientists, and leaders who once conspired against humanity were now either gone or silent. But silence did not mean acceptance. In the halls of the Galactic Council, the most powerful beings in the known universe gathered for what could be the most important decision in history. Would they bow to humanity, or try one last time to resist? The final council meeting. Ambassador Daniel Ross entered the council chamber with steady steps. He was alone. No guards, no soldiers. He didn't need them. The leaders of the galactic species sat before him, their expressions mixed with fear, frustration, and reluctant respect. Zalen of the Seraphim was the first to speak. You have proven your strength, Ambassador Ross. None can deny that humanity is beyond us. Ross nodded but said nothing. He let them speak first. Rex, the Drakshul warlord, clenched his claws. We are left with no choice. If we fight, we lose. If we resist, we vanish. Goran of the Xelzer growled. This is not how the galaxy works. Power must be challenged. We cannot simply allow one species to control everything. Ross raised an eyebrow. Control? We have not conquered a single world. We have not enslaved or ruled over anyone. Zaylan sighed. Yet you do rule in a way. Not by force, but by truth. You are untouchable. That is why we are here today, to discuss what comes next. Ross stepped forward, looking at every leader. Then let's discuss it. Humanity's offer. Ross activated a hologram in the center of the chamber. It displayed a simple agreement. Humanity does not seek war. We do not seek control, but we will not tolerate hostility. This is our offer. A united galactic council where all species can advance together. Peace, trade, and cooperation. Rex leaned forward. And if we refuse? Ross's eyes did not waver. Then you are free to leave. But know this, any act of aggression against us will not be tolerated. Ever. The room was silent. They all knew what that meant. The Silent Hand had already learned the hard way. Their fleets had vanished. Their traps had failed. Their greatest minds had been outplayed. The leaders looked at each other. Zaylan finally spoke. I accept. One by one, the others followed. Rex, Goran, the Varnak scientists, the remaining members of the once powerful Galactic Council. For the first time in history, the galaxy was united, not under one rule, but under the understanding that humanity had no equal. The Watchers in the dark. As the meeting ended and the leaders dispersed, Ross remained in the chamber, watching the stars through the large viewing screen. Helen Carter joined him. It's done, she said. They know they can't fight us. Ross nodded. But they will still try. Not today. Maybe not even in 100 years. But one day, someone will try again. Helen smirked. And when they do, Ross smiled. We'll still be watching. Aboard Infinity Spear, the most advanced human minds continued their work. The ship had already broken the limits of the known universe, and soon it would break even more. Humanity was no longer just a part of the galaxy. It had become the force that shaped its future. And as the stars watched, one truth remained clear. The laughter of the galaxy had stopped. Humanity had spoken, and the universe had listened.